We're going to talk to Dai Davies now. He's a former head of Royal Protection. Dai, you're very welcome to the programme. How are you this morning?
Good morning. Lovely to talk to you.
I just wonder, we've got more information now about this alleged Chinese spy. We know him only as H6 because he is his name is injuncted. We can't tell you his name even if we knew what it was, which I don't. But he's been tied to Prince Andrew. Now we know, because of the front of the Sunday Times, more and more information has come out over the past 48 hours that he has been meeting David Cameron and Theresa May. And actually, a lot of what people have been saying about this is that it's not just about Prince Andrew, it's about the doors that Prince Andrew would open. I wonder, as a former head of Royal Protection, whether this guy would have got past your vetting and your protection of the royals.
Well, a very good morning again. In truth, the security services would have been the ones who would have vetted anybody, presumably, again, when they're meeting with prime ministers and so on and so forth. What worries me, well, there's a number of worries, and my eyebrow went up 2 days ago when I heard about all this. It was the people then that Andrew would have been associated with. I don't think he gets given state secrets, but he would mix in those circles then, perhaps, that would discuss certain elements, particularly when they've been drinking and all the rest of it. I mean, the Chinese are in for the long game. They are there and they try and influence the House of Lords, members of Parliament, and so on and so forth. As I say, I don't think he was given state secrets. What is interesting is where his income has come for the last 20-odd years. That's what I have been asking for. And there ought to be an audit trail, because if it was anyone else who represented the United Kingdom for 20-odd years as a so-called trade ambassador, there ought to be an audit trail. Who did he meet? What was the success? And were there side issues involved, including making money for himself? There are so many questions that have been asked. And as usual, if you try and get those answers from the establishment, they close ranks and they say there aren't any. Well, that's nonsense. There are ambassadors out there, many of whom were absolutely appalled by his actions, and yet it's all covered up. It's time we came clean on his finances and who he really was talking to at home and in China. And the only people probably that can do that are the security services.
Yeah, it's interesting because the Sunday Times reporting the suspected Chinese spy became a close confidant of the Duke of York, Prince Andrew, has met two former prime ministers. The alleged agent has been banned from Britain now, met Lord Cameron and Theresa May, David Cameron and Theresa May on separate occasions, kept pictures of the encounters on the desk of his London office. And there's this kind of idea of elite capture, isn't there? An H6 meeting May and Sir Philip May at a black tie event, entering into business activities with them. It's interesting, Sir Ian Duncan-Smith is saying, the former Conservative leader, of course, he's saying that he will table an urgent question in the House of Commons tomorrow demanding answers from the government about how Andrew came to be compromised. I wonder, is this actually the government's responsibility, do you think? Is this Prince Andrew's responsibility? You're talking about questions for the royal family as well. They would say, and have said actually, because Prince Andrew is not a working royal, they can't really control him and they can't really look into his finances.
Well, I find that nebulous, to put it frankly to you. He was a member of the royal family and still is. He's a member of the family. He's still in line for the throne. This is nonsense for them to say it's nothing to do with us. We were collecting fares upstairs, as the saying goes. Absolute nonsense. He was appointed by somebody in whatever government it was, whether it's Cameron or others, 2001 from memory, to be our trade ambassador. Who actually appointed him? What was the audit trail? What vetting has been carried out since then as to his dealings, where his finances come? He has a litany of dreadful decisions, dreadful people that he's worked with. I don't want to kick the man when he's down, but clearly he is an important, or was an important man in the British establishment. He would have mixed with people, as I say, who would have had perhaps knowledge and information. That's why he has been targeted. Now, did the Chinese pay him in any shape or form? What subsidiary companies they were? As an investigator, which I have been since I retired some years ago, I would be asking these questions. Yeah. I remember tackling a relative of the Sultan of one of the sultans. And cut a long story short, you try and getting information from them, from the Foreign Office and others, it proves impossible. So there are a lot of questions to be asked, whether Parliament should be asking. Yes, if nobody else will answer them, let's ask it in Parliament and let's see where that takes us.
Dai, as someone who has been a head of royal protection, there must be a lot of people who want access to the royals. How much is that controlled? How much can sort of hangers-on actually get into the room? How much vetting is there of, royals go to events all the time, they meet all sorts of people, and actually we want them to because they're representatives of the nation, they're people who people want to meet in informal contexts and so on. But in terms of influencing them, in terms of becoming close to them, did you ever have suspicions with people who were perhaps not always having the royals' best intentions at heart, because they are very, very attractive people to get close to, even if they're Prince Andrew in this case?
Well, I think the Epstein case illustrates that the police or anyone else, in the past certainly, have had very little influence on who royals, if they invite them, the police are told X, Y, and Z is coming to you. And unless there's obvious reasons, and I can go back to when I informed the royal family about Fayed all those years ago with Princess Diana, I then chose to actually say, look, you shouldn't go on holiday with this man. I can't recall any other occasion, but I can recall that we were aware of some people that you and I perhaps wouldn't want to have invited. But if Prince Andrew said Fred Bloggs is coming, Fred Bloggs came.
Yeah.
And unless you could show he was a mass murderer or something, and in truth, I don't think we, as the royalty protection, actually vetted people to that extent, unless there was specific reasons or some intelligence came to light.
Dai, thank you for your insight there. I really appreciate that. That's Dai Davies there. He's a former head of royal protection.